You know what's interesting about manipulation? It almost never looks the way you imagine it. Ask yourself this: when you picture a manipulator, what do you see? A cold person, a calculated one, someone obviously sinister. But here's what the psychology actually shows. The most effective manipulators in your life, they're the ones who made you feel the most understood. Here's what they don't tell you about manipulation. It doesn't begin with aggression. It begins with attunement. Psychologists call this rapport exploitation, the process by which someone maps your emotional needs, your fears, your deepest insecurities, and then uses that map to guide you. Not with chains, with warmth, with the feeling of being seen. This is why manipulation leaves people so confused afterward, because the relationship felt real. And in many ways, it was. The laughter was real. The warmth was real. Only the intention was hidden. So what actually happens inside the brain when manipulation occurs? When someone makes you feel genuinely understood, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals that bond you to your closest relationships. Your brain, in its extraordinary efficiency, begins to categorize this person as safe, as important. And once that categorization is made, something subtle shifts. You begin to discount information that contradicts it. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance reduction. Your mind protects the bond by filtering out the threat. This is not weakness. This is your brain operating exactly as designed. It just wasn't designed for people who would exploit it. And here's where it gets darker, because none of this requires the manipulator to be conscious of what they're doing. Ask yourself this: have you ever noticed something about someone that unsettled you, and then talked yourself out of it? Told yourself you were overthinking, being too sensitive? That was not confusion. That was the hijack in progress. There are 4 mechanisms that recur across almost every documented case of psychological manipulation. Not tricks, not games, mechanisms, because they work on the architecture of human psychology itself. The first is love bombing, an overwhelming flood of affection, attention, and validation arriving before you've had time to calibrate whether it's warranted. Your nervous system reads this as abundance, as safety. It doesn't read it as a strategy. The second is intermittent reinforcement, the random, unpredictable withdrawal of the warmth they first gave you freely. This is the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Behavioral scientists call it the most powerful conditioning schedule known to psychology. When affection becomes unpredictable, you don't pull away, you work harder to get it back. The third is reality erosion, what most people call gaslighting, but it's more precise than that term suggests. It isn't only about denying events, it's about slowly replacing your perception of reality with theirs, until you stop trusting the data of your own experience. Until the question, "Am I overreacting?" becomes your first response to every conflict. And the fourth, perhaps the quietest, is identity fragmentation, the gradual narrowing of who you are allowed to be in their presence, what you can say, what you can feel, what you are permitted to want, until the version of you that exists around them is barely a version at all. Now here's what the psychology of manipulation almost never addresses: the manipulator's psychology. Before we go further, if this is already making you see something differently, subscribe, because this is what Paper Bag Thoughts exists for. Not comfort, clarity. Prolonged exposure to these 4 mechanisms doesn't just change your behavior, it changes your self-concept. Researchers studying survivors of long-term psychological manipulation consistently find the same cluster of symptoms: hypervigilance, chronic self-doubt, a severed connection to one's own intuition. The clinical term is betrayal trauma, but the lived experience is simpler and harder to describe. It feels like you've lost access to yourself, like the signal of who you are has been replaced by static. And this is the part they never tell you. The damage isn't always done by someone who hates you. Sometimes, often, it's done by someone who believes, in their own distorted way, that they love you. Manipulation, at its psychological root, is almost always driven by one thing: fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of losing control, fear of being truly seen. The manipulator and the manipulated are, in different ways, both trapped. So what do you do with this? Not a checklist, not a confrontation script. Here is what the psychology actually points towards. The beginning of freedom from manipulation is not anger, it's observation. The moment you can name the mechanism, love bombing, intermittent reinforcement, reality erosion, identity fragmentation, it loses a fraction of its power. Not all of it, a fraction. And fractions accumulate. You are not foolish for trusting. Trust is a feature of a functioning human mind. You are not weak for wanting to feel seen. That is the most human need there is. What you are, if you're watching this and recognizing something, is awake. And awareness in the psychology of manipulation is the only thing that truly interrupts the cycle. You are not broken by what was done to you. You are being recalibrated. And the fact that you're asking these questions, that is not the beginning of damage. That is the beginning of yourself.